So it comes to this. They finally crossed that line. They hired someone, a professional, a private investigator with 20 years of experience, a flawless reputation, and a talent for uncovering secrets that ruin lives. They paid real money, the kind that moves in silence, wrapped in unmarked envelopes. The assignment was simple. Find out who you really are. Locate the weakness, the scandal, the flaw, anything that could explain why your mere presence unsettles them so deeply. But something unexpected happened. 3 weeks later, the investigator returned, not with a thick file or damning evidence, but with confusion written all over their face. They sat down at that polished mahogany table, looked your enemies straight in the eye, and said words that froze the room. "I've been doing this for 2 decades. I've taken down politicians, exposed cheaters, uncovered frauds. But this one is different. What I found doesn't make sense." Silence fell. The people who had paid for your destruction leaned forward eagerly, waiting for the dirt they were promised. The investigator pulled out a single piece of paper, hands trembling slightly, and said, "The person you're investigating isn't who you think they are. They're nothing like what you described. What I found isn't criminal. It isn't scandalous. It's something else entirely. It's like looking at someone who shouldn't exist according to the rules we all live by." That's when the fear began. They realized too late that they hadn't hired someone to expose you. They'd hired someone who would end up exposing them. The investigator didn't find your secrets. They found your power. Worse still, they found proof that everything your enemies had said about you was projection. Every accusation was really a confession. Every rumor they spread was their own reflection, bouncing back like a mirror they couldn't escape. The investigator had followed protocol at first. Birth records, school transcripts, job history, social media footprints. They searched criminal databases, financial statements, court files, looking for any trace of deception or corruption. They ran your data through specialized software that could resurrect deleted posts from decades ago, trace IP addresses, even recover old text messages. But something strange happened. The deeper they looked, the cleaner it got. Not just ordinarily clean, but unnervingly flawless. That alone made them suspicious. Maybe you were hiding something. So they went further, speaking with old teachers, employers, neighbors, anyone who might know the real you. But what they discovered next would rewrite everything they thought they knew about investigation itself. They were searching for stories, those hidden moments when your mask supposedly slipped, when the real you might have shown something dark, something flawed. They wanted someone to say, "Oh yeah, I remember when they did that terrible thing." But no one did. Instead, what they heard was the same unsettling truth repeated again and again. "Yeah, I remember them. They were different, quiet but sharp. Never caused trouble, but somehow always saw everything. Once they helped me when nobody else would. Never wanted recognition, just disappeared afterward." And the strangest part? Everyone who had ever tried to hurt you eventually destroyed themselves. Not because you sought revenge, but because their own karma seemed to accelerate the moment they crossed your path. The investigator took notes, growing uneasy. None of this made sense. In their experience, people this spotless were hiding something monumental, so they went deeper into the places that weren't meant to be accessed. They combed through deep web forums, underground databases, hidden government archives. They called in favors from contacts who didn't exist on paper. They even accessed systems that required security clearances beyond civilian reach. And then came the shock. What they found, or rather, what they didn't find, made them freeze. There were gaps, not deletions, but absences. Entire sections of your life missing, like reality itself had redacted you. Years where you should have appeared in records, but didn't. Surveillance cameras that mysteriously stopped working whenever you walked by. Files with your name in them, but no details. only strange notes that hinted at something far beyond ordinary comprehension. One therapist's report simply read, "This patient sees things others can't. I'm not qualified for this." A former boss wrote, "Exemplary employee, but their presence changes everything. Office productivity up 40%. 3 people resigned, claiming they felt exposed. Even a police report from a routine witness statement noted something chilling. Subject's testimony solved 5 unrelated cold cases. Method unknown. Then came the pattern, the undeniable thread tying it all together. Every single person who had tried to destroy you, discredit you, or stand in your way had their life unravel within 6 months. Not because of anything you did. The investigator checked thoroughly. No retaliation, no contact, no revenge. Yet every one of them ended up revealing their own corruption, their own lies, their own hidden sins. Somehow, by simply being who you are, you've become the mirror they can't escape. And it reflects everything they've been running from. Their schemes backfired spectacularly. Their lies began to unravel on their own, as if the universe itself had marked them for destruction the very moment they marked you. The investigators started connecting dots that shouldn't have connected, like invisible threads weaving through time and space. You appeared in 5 different cities, each during mysterious, unexplained events, power outages that targeted only the buildings where corrupt deals were taking place, computer systems crashing moments before illegal transactions could be finalized, surveillance footage conveniently corrupted except for the frames that exposed the criminals involved. You were never directly part of any of it, just there nearby, quietly observing. The investigator decided to dig deeper. They began interviewing people who knew you now, neighbors, co-workers, friends, anyone who might offer clarity. But those conversations didn't go as expected. Each interview began normally, then the person's expression would shift, as if they were remembering something buried deep within. "You want to know about them?" they'd ask. "I'll tell you something strange. I was at the lowest point in my life when they appeared. They didn't say much, barely spoke at all. But when they looked at me, really looked, I understood things about myself I'd been avoiding for years. They didn't give advice. They didn't try to fix me. They just were. And somehow that was enough. My whole life changed after that." "I can't explain how," another interviewee confessed, trembling with guilt. "I tried to sabotage them once. I was jealous, angry, insecure. I spread rumors, tried to turn people against them. And you know what they did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But within a month, every lie I told became true about me. I lost everything I accused them of lacking. It was like reality itself defended them." Then came the ex, the one who tried to destroy your name after the breakup. They couldn't even sit still during the interview. "I told everyone they were manipulative, dangerous, made up stories, even forged proof. They never fought back, just walked away. But after that, strange things started happening. Every lie I told came alive in my life. Everyone I turned against them turned on me. I'm in therapy now. I can't sleep. I still see their eyes in my dreams." One interview stood apart, a former colleague who whispered, "They knew things before they happened." They described how you'd make offhand comments that later came true. Companies collapsing, scandals breaking, disasters unfolding exactly as you'd said. It wasn't prophecy, they said. It was like they could see the cracks in everything before they spread. Desperate for rationality, the investigator turned to your digital footprint, the one place no one can truly hide. They used advanced software to scan your entire online history: posts, comments, photos, timestamps, metadata, everything. They searched for inconsistencies, hidden patterns, contradictions. But your digital presence defied logic. It wasn't that you were careful. It was as if you existed on another frequency altogether. Your posts appeared and disappeared from timelines at random. Some people saw them, others didn't. Algorithms couldn't categorize you. A single sentence from you could ripple through thousands of lives. They found forums filled with stories, hundreds of people describing encounters with you online. They commented on my photo and suddenly I couldn't lie to myself anymore. They liked my post, and that night I had dreams that showed me what I needed to do. They shared my status, and within a week my fake life collapsed. My real one began. When the investigator traced your digital interactions with your enemies, the very ones who hired them, they found something even stranger. Those people had tried to hack you, harass you, expose your private life, but every attack had backfired. Devices crashed, accounts were suspended, their own secrets got leaked, not because you fought back, but because the systems themselves seemed to turn against them. It was as if the internet recognized your frequency and moved to protect it. At this point, the investigator, now unsettled and sleepless, brought in a psychological profiler, one of the best in the country, the kind employed by intelligence agencies to map the minds of high-threat individuals. For 2 weeks they analyzed every piece of data, every interaction, every digital trace ever tied to your name. What they concluded would shake even the most skeptical mind. The report was meant to expose your weaknesses, to map your triggers, your breaking points, your vulnerabilities. Instead, it revealed something entirely different. The profiler's tone was clinical at first, but by the end, even the language seemed to tremble. In 30 years of psychological analysis, the report began, I've never encountered a profile like this. The subject exhibits paradoxical traits that shouldn't coexist. They display signs of severe trauma, yet there are no trauma responses. They carry the patterns of betrayal, abandonment, and abuse. But instead of damage, there's transformation. It's as if they metabolize pain into power. The document continued, Standard psychological frameworks don't apply. They should be broken, but they're whole. They should be bitter, but they're free. They should seek revenge, yet they remain indifferent to their enemies. This isn't forgiveness. It's transcendence. They've surpassed the human need for closure. They exist in a state of completion that makes them psychologically untouchable. Then came the most unsettling observation. The subject appears to possess abilities that defy psychological explanation. Their perception is heightened, possibly precognitive. They read micro-expressions, emotional frequencies, and energetic signatures beyond the capacity of trained experts. More disturbingly, they appear to influence probability itself. In their presence, deceit collapses, truth surfaces unprovoked, and events bend toward their protection. The final line of the report was a single recommendation: do not engage. This individual operates outside normal human parameters. They are not dangerous in the conventional sense. They are dangerous because they represent evolution. Any attempt to target them is an act of self-destruction. The threat lies not in their actions, but in the laws of reality that defend them. The investigator, now visibly shaken, decided to look further back into the roots. Perhaps the answers were ancestral. They combed through archives, family registries, genealogical databases, and handwritten birth records. What emerged was not a lineage, but a legend. Your family tree was full of gaps, not missing information, but people who seemed to exist between the cracks of history. Ancestors who appeared as visitors in official records, yet somehow altered the course of major events. Great-grandparents who neighbors said didn't belong to this time. Family members who predicted disasters before they happened, who survived accidents that should have been fatal, who vanished for years only to return unchanged. Old newspaper clippings painted the same eerie pattern. Local woman predicts factory fire, saves hundreds. Man walks away from fatal crash without a scratch. Witnesses claim he glowed. Child recites ancient language no one taught them. Different stories, different decades, yet always the same surname. Even the medical records defied logic. Relatives who healed from terminal illness overnight. Brain scans showing activity in unmapped regions. Blood work revealing unknown markers. A doctor's handwritten note from 1987 stood out. Patient's biology does not follow standard models. Recommend discontinuing further tests. Some things are not meant to be understood. The deeper the investigator went, the stranger it got. Across generations, intelligence agencies and scientific bodies had quietly taken interest, then abruptly stopped. Each classified file ended with the same sentence. Subject exhibits phenomena beyond current understanding. Observation terminated. No further action recommended. It was as though your entire bloodline was marked as anomalous, yet shielded by something untouchable. At this point, traditional methods failed. In desperation, the investigator turned to those who dealt in the unexplainable: energy readers, frequency analysts, and quantum sensitives. They didn't believe in any of it, but they were running out of logic. What these specialists found shattered every assumption the investigator had left. Assumption. One energy reader, pale and trembling after examining your photograph, whispered, "This person doesn't vibrate on a human frequency. They're broadcasting across dimensions. Their electromagnetic field is off the charts. They're a walking disruption to the matrix. Anyone who harms them is essentially attacking a force of nature." Another specialist analyzed your voice and said, "Their vocal frequencies contain harmonics that shouldn't exist. There are undertones that bypass the conscious mind and speak directly to the soul. When they speak, they're not just communicating, they're altering reality. They're not just communicating, they're transmitting codes, subtle multidimensional frequencies that move through voice, presence, and silence alike. These aren't ordinary signals. They're living instructions embedded in the quantum fabric of reality itself." Specialists describe them as activation sequences, frequencies that awaken dormant strands of DNA, dissolve ancestral trauma, and trigger the next phase of human evolution. Every word, every look, every moment of contact carries resonance that rearranges energy fields. This is why people change after encountering you. It isn't persuasion, it's transmission. People begin remembering who they truly are. They start shedding layers of illusion, releasing fears that have caged them for lifetimes. You don't speak transformation, you radiate it. When the investigator brought in a specialist in biofield photography, the goal was to capture measurable proof, something concrete to explain what was happening. But what emerged from the equipment was unlike anything documented in modern science. Where most humans display soft gradients of color, muted yellows, greens, and blues, your energy field looked like a celestial storm colliding with a spiral galaxy. Lightning arcs of gold and violet intertwined with rivers of deep indigo. There were colors that the visible spectrum cannot name, shades that hurt to look at directly because they seemed to shift dimensions as the eye focused. Within that swirling brilliance were geometric structures, sacred, fractal, alive, patterns that pulsed like breathing architecture. The specialists reviewing the footage began to sweat. The readings destabilized their instruments, generating frequencies outside measurable bandwidths. They claimed the images began responding to their thoughts, changing whenever they tried to categorize them. Moments later, they deleted all recordings and powered down the system. Before leaving, they left a single note. Some things aren't meant to be photographed. This one is under ancient guardianship. The investigator dismissed it as emotional overreaction until the quantum physicist's report arrived. This wasn't folklore. It was mathematics gone rogue. The data indicated that you create localized quantum entanglement fields, zones of probability distortion that rewrite cause and effect around you. Those who engage you with integrity experience spontaneous alignment, doors opening, synchronicities multiplying, illnesses disappearing, breakthroughs occurring overnight. But those who approach with deceit or hostility experience collapse, financial ruin, reputational exposure, mysterious accidents, each correlating with their interaction timeline. The physicist summarized bluntly, "Reality bends around this subject. The universe appears to enforce a kind of karmic symmetry in their presence. As the investigator read that line, strange things began happening in their own life. It started small, misplaced objects appearing exactly where they needed them. Then came déjà vu moments, lucid dreams, and unexplainable coincidences. Their nightmares stopped. Old fears melted away. Their health improved. Emotional wounds they had carried for decades began to heal without therapy or medication. They found themselves sleeping deeply for the first time in years, waking with insights about cases they hadn't even been investigating. Then came the dreams, the ones that felt more real than waking life. You were always there, not speaking, not judging, simply observing. The investigator would wake up feeling both exposed and understood, as if your silence had revealed every truth they'd been avoiding. They tried to shake it off, but your presence followed them. Subtle reminders and synchronicities, repeating numbers, flashes of intuition that guided them to hidden evidence before they knew it existed. Soon, professional detachment became impossible. Every document, every photograph, every testimony they collected about you reflected a mirror image of their own suppressed memories. They began to realize the case wasn't about you. It was about them. The deeper they looked, the more they saw their own shadow. Interviews meant to expose you became confessions. Digital archives seemed to contain coded messages addressed directly to them. Reality itself began to participate in the investigation. The data didn't just describe you, it began to transform them. Their family noticed first. They're in the country, the kind employed by intelligence agencies to map the minds of high-threat individuals. For 2 weeks, they analyzed every piece of data, every interaction, every digital trace ever tied to your name. What they concluded would shake even the most skeptical mind. The report was meant to expose your weaknesses, to map your triggers, your breaking points, your vulnerabilities. Instead, it revealed something entirely different. The profiler's tone was clinical at first, but by the end, even the language seemed to tremble. In 30 years of psychological analysis, the report began, "I've never encountered a profile like this. The subject exhibits paradoxical traits that shouldn't coexist. They display signs of severe trauma, yet there are no trauma responses. They carry the patterns of betrayal, abandonment, and abuse. But instead of damage, there's transformation. It's as if they metabolize pain into power." The document continued, "Standard psychological frameworks don't apply. They should be broken, but they're whole. They should be bitter, but they're free. They should seek revenge.